Every single year, if you're an NFL fan, you look forward to these rankings because these are based on executives. These are based on general managers, coaches, and people inside the NFL. It's not just a bunch of media people ranking these quarterbacks. Yes, the QB position. Joining us here on the show is Mike Sando of The Athletic with his annual quarterback tiers. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I like this time of year as well. I always love putting this together. It takes a little while, but once we get it done, it's a fun conversation.
At the top is Patrick Mahomes. And it's interesting because I think fans and some media might have him drop in their Q rating because they missed the playoffs last year. And maybe it's kind of a fatigue of greatness that happens sometimes. And yet people around the league don't seem to be losing much steam for their respect for Mahomes. So what are you gathering from a down year from the Chiefs and by Mahomes' standard by QB number 15 himself?
I think really the cement is set on somebody like that. It's kind of like, after Tom Brady was great for how many years, I don't think each year is an interesting conversation, but it's not like you're totally changing what you think about him in terms of how great he is. I think years to come, I think the twos could creep in, but I don't think he's diminished physically beyond this knee now that he has to rehab. But we've seen others. Tom Brady had a knee injury too, didn't obviously run around as much as Mahomes does. But once you're that set and established, they're not going to flip everything off of a year or two.
There is a sense with some fans that Josh Allen gets unnecessarily propped to the top. He hasn't been to a Super Bowl. They've had some bad, calamitous losses in Buffalo in the postseason. Where is the overall respect for Josh Allen? He's in that top tier from the executives and coaches that you spoke to. Is it pretty unanimous that everybody looks at Josh as that next level superstar epic talent?
Yeah, he and Stafford tied with 48 tier one votes, two apiece in tier two. He is, he is the run. Him running the ball is a bigger part of the equation than it often is for the guys in the top tier, because I think players and most coaches alike do feel like the ability to win from the pocket as a passer is the thing that's hardest to take away. If you have that, you can be consistent and you can have the ultimate success a little bit easier. But his kind of journey as a passer, along with this, on top of the fact that, they've had good defenses there, they've had good run games there, they haven't really had them at the same time. Clearly he is, holding that up there, I think, in Buffalo. And until one part of his game starts to leave him, if his rushing wasn't as good, and I think he's going to stay up there.
Here's a kind reminder. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. That way you won't miss anything. You don't want one of our videos to slip through your feed. Make sure you're subscribed. In terms of what your expectations are for Josh and the Bills, do you think he can unlock a different level with Joe Brady and DJ Moore coming to town?
I mean, I think he can, but I don't think that I feel so good about it that I'm going to necessarily bet on it happening. I think there's a wider range of outcomes. Look, they're going to be good. Josh Allen's going to make them good, but within that, like the greatness, or is it too much of a good thing when your play caller goes from kind of being your confidant and maybe a little bit more of a friend than, the head coach could be, to now going into that head coaching job? I think that is a interesting transition to make, when clearly before with Sean McDermott, he was in charge, also a defensive pedigree. I'm sure he went along with a lot of stuff that Josh Allen wanted to do, but there was a little bit more of a check and balance there, I think. And so now, what does it mean? Is Josh Allen more empowered? I've heard whispers and people complaining a little bit in the league about the fact that Josh Allen gets to kind of do the pass protections how he wants them. I think that's been a little bit of a source of frustration on the staff at times in the past. Is that a good or a bad thing if that's enabled more? What's that going to look like, right? Those would be the concerns, not so much about Josh Allen. I think we know he's going to be a star. Just as you try to go to get over the top, are these fine-tuned changes good? Maybe not quite as good.
So there could be a downside in empowering Josh even more, because I think a lot of people think that perhaps McDermott put some reins on Josh and might have helped develop a scheme that was perhaps at times too conservative against some elite opponents. And so Joe Brady would empower Josh to have more influence over it. There could be a negative side of it.
I'll give you an example of this. I think that's a criticism of the situation with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. That Zach Taylor, good offensive play caller, but they play a little bit too wide open to brand a ball. Look, they got great receivers. I mean, they need to not be handing it off all the time, obviously, but they invite trouble with some of their aggressive protections, leaving the edges unprotected, and partly because Joe Burrow loves to sit back there with 5 eligible receivers and pick apart the defense, and he's willing to stand in there and take hits. You know, is that the best calibration for everything for the team, right? When you're trying to win as a team, think the ultimate of that would be like a Bill Belichick. He had Tom Brady, but he still wanted a certain amount of the run game, especially when they got into plus territory. Liked a little bit of the control there. Obviously, they were very good on defense, special teams, and it all kind of fit together to win. And if Brady needed to throw it 60 times, he could do it. But it wasn't an every week thing. Whereas I think with Burrow there, it feels like the offensive coach, you know, hey, let's go. And Burrow's like, yeah, I want to do this. Is that necessarily the best calibration for them? I think those are questions that fall at the feet of the head coach and how you're going to try to win the games.
Who has the biggest discrepancy as a quarterback in the NFL from public perception, from fans, to how those in the league feel about him?
Yeah, I think, well, it has to be Lamar Jackson and Justin Herbert, I think, are two guys at the very top of tier 2. They've both been in tier 1 before, but they're not there every year. It's kind of for the most part, tier 2. And you think, I mean, Lamar Jackson's the MVP of the league. I mean, one of the most dynamic players in the history of the league. He's probably headed to the Hall of Fame. Why wouldn't he be a tier 1 all the time? And I think early open up more conventional run game, but is he going to be as dynamic as a rusher? Because clearly by the votes here, 22 votes in tier 1 for him, 28 in tier 2, people think he's got to be the dynamic runner to be in tier 1. I think most fans would say, what are you talking about? You're overthinking it. This guy's tier 1 every day.
Yeah, and the bottom of the list is always super interesting as well, because you have a guy in Shedeur Sanders who's very polarizing, and there are those that believe that what they saw on the field last year was good quarterbacking and that he should be the man. And then you have a bunch of executives and coaches saying, no, he's actually one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL. So is that also kind of a discrepancy, at least from those that believe Shedeur should be the guy in Cleveland?
Yeah, and I think it's a bad situation in Cleveland. And it probably was not a good fit with the head coach Stefanski there. We've got the feeling, and probably even some reporting, that, you know, when you're taking 2 quarterbacks there in the draft, that maybe Shedeur Sanders wasn't the one that the coaches were going to take. I think that's safe to say. So people felt like, hey, Shedeur is up behind the 8 ball here, and he's not getting a fair accounting if you were a Shedeur supporter. I think that some people in the league, coaches, see the attitude of Shedeur Sanders, and it feels like a guy who's maybe feels like he knows best and wants to do it his way. I'm sure, you know, coaches don't like that. And then the film on the field wasn't good. I mean, he did have problems with accuracy. He had problems getting the team in and out of the huddle on time, just functioning as a quarterback. So all of those things to me point to, let's just start fresh with a different coach, and let's see what it looks like now, and maybe we'll get a little bit of a fairer accounting of him.
J.J. McCarthy also finished down near the bottom, and a lot of people are wondering whether he's seen his final days as a starting quarterback already in Minnesota. Was there the chatter behind the scenes of the Vikings made a big mistake in where they drafted J.J. McCarthy?
Yeah, that's been a polarizing thing anyway. I think that some people really saw it with him. I think a lot of people saw that there were traits there that could be developed, even though he wasn't really asked to carry it much at Michigan. But there were some traits. Now, concerns, or some durability concerns with him, and just kind of his stature and his ability to absorb punishment. And then it's just looked really bad. And I think people perceive that to be a great situation for a quarterback. People like Kevin O'Connell, they have great weaponry. For it to look as bad and hard and difficult as it did for him is a red flag. Let's just face it, that's a red flag. So now you bring in Kyler Murray, who, say what you want about him, he has a body of work. He's been a starting quarterback in the NFL. He's been at least an average one. Better than that is best. I'd be very surprised if they started J.J. McCarthy, if Kevin O'Connell looked at those players in that locker room and say, hey, guys, we're going with J.J. we may see JJ, but I think they got to see Kyler first. And then JJ will be there. And if he gets his chance and plays well, that's one thing. But how do you bet on what you've seen so far with that team where they feel like they're close and their defense is top 5?
For Sam Darnold coming off the coronation of a Super Bowl, the executives that you spoke to, did they feel as though that was the real Sam Darnold and see he just needed a winning organization around him? Or were many executives surprised that he could elevate to that level?
No, I think that they do appreciate that, what you're saying and about him, but they also recognize that, it's a great situation. Minnesota was a great situation. Top defense. They're going to win a lot of games. Minnesota went 9-8 last year without Darnold, without really a good quarterback at all. And Seattle was a big defense, special teams, squad last year where there's punt returner and kick returners winning games for them. And they ask Sam Darnold to do it in doses. When he needed to fling it around in the championship game against the Rams, he could do it. But you don't really feel like they want to do that all the time. And so that's where some of that credit for winning the Super Bowl, it wasn't like he was Kurt Warner out there throwing it 38 times in a drop back pass offense, right? I mean, it was a great job by him, but the context there is why he wouldn't push even higher.
What was the one quarterback that you found the most polarizing with the opinions and the feedback you got from those within the NFL?
It's probably Justin Herbert, who has 19 votes in tier 1 and 3 in tier 3. And just that whole idea of super talented guy. There's reasons why he hasn't done it, and meaning winning the playoffs or have an MVP type year. But at a certain point, like, people get tired of hearing about that it was his offensive line or it was this or it was that. And so there can be a weariness with someone like that versus, I think a lot of coaches would be like, sign me up. Could I have that guy? Like to have him on our team. And we'll see if Mike McDaniel is that guy this year. He may finally be able to unlock it a little bit more, but there's worries too about him taking too many hits, kind of in a CJ Stroud type of way where it starts to affect how you play.
Mike Sando's quarterback tier is always one of the most fascinating preseason lists and rankings that are out there. It's available right now on The Athletic. Their app is fantastic. It's a great interface. I'm a subscriber. I love the NFL coverage and content. The Hall of Fame game is here, and so I'm all in on the NFL stuff, and The Athletic has you covered top to bottom. Mike Sando is one of the best in the game at doing it, and I encourage you to always read Mike's stuff on The Athletic. Check it out right now at The Athletic's website and on The Athletic's app. Mike, always good to catch up, man. Thanks so much for doing it. Once again, a fascinating study that you got going on right now. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Damon. Appreciate it very much.